These are all dualities: faith and fear, compassion and apathy. Um, so let's talk about apathy. All of us in some point in time have been on the receiving end of apathy and have been the perpetrator, meaning we become numb and apathetic to someone else's pain and needs. Okay. And this is not a indictment. This is just an illustration of what is the human experience. Um, so what is apathy? Well, a pathy, pathy, I think it's Greek or Latin. Pathos is feelings. In a way, it's almost like a path. They say like your feelings kind of dictate a lot of what we do in life. It really does. I don't let people out there tell you otherwise. Like, facts aren't feelings. Yeah, but the same person that says that is probably driven by unconscious feelings. Anyway, so that being said, pathos is feelings. A is the absence of or the lack of. So the void. So apathy is the lack of feelings, the lack of path. It's blocked. So we could think of it as cancel culture, as blocking, as turning blinders on. You could be walking through downtown somewhere in a major city, and then you just pass through a few homeless people. I know that, like, there's people shooting up on the streets, and like there's people that just go about their day like they don't even exist, even though they're right in front of their faces. And this is not a judgment call, because this, like, there's so many reasons why we have apathy, right? A lot of it is like boundaries and um protecting ourselves from feeling overwhelmed. um we need to go about our day to function. We got to get to our jobs. We got to get to our next appointment. You know what I mean? So, like, at the root of it, I'm just describing what the nature of apathy is. So, apathy is the lack of feelings. What is it? Sociopaths, psychopaths have a hard time feeling their feelings, all right, or they don't have access to it. Um, on the other hand, compassion, I look at it as coming together of passions. A passion is like very feelings driven, very, very feelings driven. If you're passionate about something, you feel this like sensation of drive. Like it's almost like fire energy, like energy. Like that's a good way of like framing this phenomenon of compassion or of passion. Passion is like fire that fuels whatever thing or goal or idea you're trying to get to, right? So it's very feelings driven when you're passionate. And compassion, um I look at it as like coming together, like because you are on the way, because you're on the mark, meaning you're passionate about something and you're driven. There's movement, there's kinetic energy, you're moving towards something, right? And then as you're moving towards that thing, there's people come that you're attracting, because you're pursuing this thing. You made a decision to pursue this thing. People are coming together, and that's compassion. Compassion is another way of describing compassion is to suffer with. It's like two or more people coming together to suffer. I mean, it's like a paradox concept, right? Because, like, what? Your passion, suffer? But it is, because it's a pain in the ass to get something done. Like whether it's an art project or an album that you want to produce or a book you want to write, it's a pain in the ass. Excuse my language, but it's suffering. Like you have to exert force, energy, anxieties. You have to like lean into the fear and do it anyway. Um, Suffering. Anytime you perform on stage, everyone feels it. The sweats, the nervousness, the jitters, the butterflies in the stomach, suffering, you know? So, compassion is the ability to feel. It's like embracing your feelings. And a lot of times it's just suffering, long suffering. Um, but in a good way, like you're working out to build muscle and clear out the fatty cholesterol in your blood system. You know what I mean? Like yeah, your heart's beating, you're palpitating, you're like having these long breaths and you're like, "Oh my god, I feel like I'm dying," while you're, on your second mile jogging or something. But you're actually you're lowering your LDLs and HDLs and this and that. You're elongating your lifespan because you're maintaining and you're boosting up your strength in your body. Well, that's compassion. Compassion is the willingness to suffer with, the willingness to feel, to suffer. It's a conscious choosing of a particular way of suffering. It's suffering with a purpose. It's suffering to get to something that really moves you, that really like you come to a point in your life, you're like, what? I'm gonna suffer no matter what. Like whether I do it or don't, right? If I don't do it, I sit on my butt every day, I'm gonna feel this stagnation kind of suffering. But if I go out there and I like book the job, I show up for this show, I show up for my friend's birthday, I show up for my mom and dad, whatever, you show up. Um, and you come together with people you're not comfortable with, or you're just really social anxieties, right? You are also suffering. You're also suffering, but you're suffering in a different, higher vibrational way. And that's compassion. You're compassionate. So the reason I bring this up is because in Act Two, part of our acts of service is to do a philanthropic service. We go through the whole production process from pitching an artist because there's something about the artist's art that speaks to you directly, being vulnerable with the artist in the pitch, really refining why you want this artist to interview with and what this artist can offer to the community of future journal artists that could benefit from hearing his or her story. And that's a lot of compassion. That's a lot of suffering because you are leaning into the fear of rejection, possible rejection, by putting your vulnerabilities out there and making an ask to an artist to say yes to you. I will interview with you. Then you got to put together a production team that's going to go out and film, and you have to prepare the interview, you have to practice the interview, you have to, and then on the day you're actually with the artist, you're in that face-to-face moment with the team, and the interview's done, you go to post production and you start editing the work. And then like you do a quick write up on this, and I mean it's a lot of work. It's just a lot of work, and it's a pain in the ass. Like a lot of it is long suffering, but it's compassion because you're getting to a point where you have a purpose. And in this particular purpose, you want the world to discover this artist because this artist has gone through something that the world could identify and benefit from. And his or her art is going to speak to the souls of a lot of people who need answers. So, So you're doing an act of service while confronting your own pains, uh, by embracing it and doing it anyway. So that's just one example of compassion. Of course, interviewing an artist is just our program for compassion. There's so many other ways to experience compassion, right? Um, do some volunteer service for Red Cross. Like donate your blood. I don't know, like like just there's so many infinite ways to be compassionate. But for the love story, our way to build up the muscle of compassion is our interview an artist program, where we get people to lean in and embrace their feelings, um, and allowing their feelings to point towards the person they're, I would say, meant to have this face to face encounter and to produce their story for other people to hear.